We're live.
Good morning, everyone. We have a busy agenda this morning, so I'll ask Mike to go ahead with the roll call.
Councillor Moffat,
Present.
Gordon Danielson,
Present.
Councillor Roberts,
Present.
Councillor Kennedy,
Present.
Councillor Burton,
Present.
Councillor Ryle,
Present.
Councillor DeVolen,
Present.
and Councillor Shell.
Present.
Thank you.
Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councillor Shell and Councillor Burton.
Moved by Councillor Shell, seconded by Councillor Burton. Be it resolved that the December 9th, 2020 Haliburton County Committee of the Whole agenda be approved.
All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest this morning? Hearing none, we will move right into delegations. And our first delegation is from Harold Clawick from Keystone Bridge Management to talk about bridge inspections. Good morning, Harold. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now and can you see me okay?
Yep, you're loud and clear. So over to you.
I will share my screen. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Not yet. There we go.
Very well. So I guess I will just dive right in if everybody can hear me and see my screen okay?
Yep.
Excellent. So Keystone Bridge Management was retained to inspect all of the large bridges and culverts in Haliburton County in 2020. And this is a summary report of our findings and speaks particularly to the financial aspects and the capital needs. So the cover slide shows the Drag River Bridge, which is your second largest bridge in the inventory. To sum up very quickly, there were 42 structures that were inspected, 18 were bridges and 24 were large culverts. A large culvert is a culvert that has a span of 10 feet or 3 meters or more. The value of the structures inspected in Haliburton County is approaching $92 million. That's a reasonably reliable estimate. It may be 100 million, maybe 80 million, but certainly you're carrying about $92 million in asset value, replacement value. We're recognizing about $10.3 million in capital needs to bring the structures up to a good state of repair. And that expenditure is forecast to be required between 2021 and 2028. We're recommending 4 culverts be replaced and 5 bridges are in need of what we call a comprehensive rehabilitation. So this is what the structures look like with respect to their age. Circled in the middle are a group of 19 structures that are 40 to 60 years old. And so you have a mix of structures from very new to up to about 110 years old. And a very evenly distributed structure inventory. And that Drag River Bridge that was shown on the cover slide, it is precisely in the middle of this age grouping. And it's typically as the bridges get older that they require more capital investment to sustain their life and to maximize the remaining life in them. This slide shows the relative size of the structures. And if we look at the second column, that shows that there are 16 structures that have a surface area between 100 and 200 square meters. The largest bridge is just over 600 square meters in planned surface area, that's the deck. and it's just over 600 square meters. That's the Head Lake Bridge. And it has 651 square meters. In total, there are almost 8,000 square meters of surface area of bridges in Haliburton County. This this slide shows a lot. The good news is on the left of the slide, where we're showing that there's about, of the planned surface area, there's about 700, 800 square meters of surface area that has been renewed in the last 20 years. But what's of concern is the fact that there's about 52, or over half of the surface area of the bridges is presently more than 50 years old. And so it's this older portion of the structure, the culvert and bridge inventory, that is going to require increasing capital investment as they continue to age. But the good news is there has been about 12.7% renewal over the past 20 years. Ideally, the renewal rate should be about 1% a year, or 20% over 20 years. Haliburton County is doing okay, but could be doing better. So just to recap, about 12.7% renewal over the past 20 years. Ideally, it should be more like 20% in 20 years. And clearly, there's going to be an increasing requirement for capital expenditure as these structures age. And I'm suggesting in the last point that some investment in preservation capital will forestall or postpone the need for replacement. This shows the capital expenditures required by structure type over the next 8 years. The bridges are shown in blue and the culverts are shown in red. It's fairly even distribution from the point of view of prorating expenditures between culverts and large bridges. This represents 4 culvert replacements and 1 major culvert rehabilitation. The major culvert rehabilitation we're going to speak to a little bit more soon, and 5 major bridge rehabilitations. And again, with a bridge rehabilitation, the idea is it will extend the life of the bridge. It will postpone the need to replace it when it would ordinarily be required to be replaced. And again, this shows all of the capital structures just lumped as bridges and culverts together. And we have a fairly significant need in 2021, 2022, 2023. And it is starting to taper off a little bit towards the end of the planning period. So we have what a former manager of mine used to characterize as a mud wave of immediate needs. And if they get addressed, then things will start to level out going into the future. We provide an estimate of the remaining service life and replacement cost of each of the structures as part of our service. And so this just shows the bottom of the list, those structures that have the lowest remaining service life. And so, for example, the lower Cup Lake culvert, which has an estimated replacement cost of almost $2.5 million, if it's not repaired, it will probably only have about 5 years of remaining service life. And so if we invest some money in rehabilitating it as opposed to replacing it, we will be able to extend the life of this structure significantly. At the bottom of the list is the Fishtail Lake Road culvert, and we're showing that it is effectively at the end of its normal service life and should be replaced at the first opportunity. Now, when we say a structure is at the end of its service life, that doesn't mean it's about to fail. It just means that the Haliburton County is taking on increased risk by keeping that structure on its inventory as is. And so it's at the end of its ordinary service life, but with vigilance and a little bit of care, it can be maintained for a little bit longer. So this is graph shows the projected replacement cost by decade. So looking into the future, and this says if we don't spend money in capital, this is what it looks like in terms of a replacement schedule over time. And we're showing $10 million in replacement needs over the next 20 years, so $500,000 a year. And if we look out in the period 40 to 50 years from now, there's going to be a need to replace about $27 million in structures in that decade. And so, for example, the Furnace Falls Bridge, which I believe you're all familiar with, it would fall into that decade where it would probably require replacement unless significant money is invested in rehabilitating that structure. And so the sum total of replacement here in this graph is about $92 million in replacement needs over the next 80 to 90 years. And the most pressing concern is the immediate concerns of $10 million in replacement over the next 20 years. And so this is replacement. This does not include the need to rehabilitate some structures that aren't necessarily ready to be replaced. This is a little bit hard to follow, but what these graphs, these side-by-side graphs show is what happens when we invest in, here we're just speaking to the bridges. And so if all of the bridges were brand spanking new, just put into service, they would be, they would have no depreciation. They would be valued at 100% of their new value. Presently, depending on what you assume, the bridges have depreciated. And so if I may, I'll just very quickly. If we look at, no, it's not cooperative. Oh, that's my laser, pardon me. So if we look here, these are 4 different depreciation scenarios, speaking just to the bridges. The bridges presently are depreciated to the point where they retain about 30% of their new value on average. If we spend the money as suggested in the capital program, these bridges will improve by about 8% over the next 5 years. And so by spending money, by recapitalizing these structures, the retained value will improve. And that's what's being forecast in this. And it takes a little while to digest this, and I won't belabor it. But the bottom line is, if money is spent in the bridges, it is reflected in terms of their depreciated value. This shows different investment scenarios for just the bridges. And the green line shows spending the money as per the capital program. And so if we invest in the bridges as per our recommendations, it is going to show a bump in the retained value of the bridges. But what really needs to happen is, ideally, the retained value of the bridges should be around 50% for an evenly distributed bridge inventory. And what this graph shows is that Haliburton County should be spending of the order of $1 million plus every year to bring the bridges up to a healthy level of depreciation. And so that is shown by the blue line. And so here's the blue line. And if we spend $1 million a year just on the bridges, the retained value will improve from about 30% to 40% over 20 years. Now we're looking at just the culverts. The culverts presently, they are doing much better than the bridges. They have a retained value of about 44% of new value. So they've depreciated to 44% of their new value. And the outlook is they will continue to depreciate to about 18% of their new value over the next 20 years. And so they are depreciating at about 1.25% per year over the next 20 years. How much do we need to be spending on the culverts? Again, in the absence of spending any money on them, their depreciated value will decline to about 19% from 44% over the next 20 years. There's a recommendation to spend a fair bit up front, and that will bump up the depreciated value. So if we follow the capital recommendations as presented, the culverts will get a bump and will have their depreciated value improved to about 47-48% over the next 5 to 10 years. Ideally, the expenditure in culverts should be about 1.5% of the replacement value, and so that works out to $300,000 per year. And that was projected to improve the depreciated value to just under 50% over the next 20 years if Haliburton County can sustain an average investment of $300,000 a year in their culverts. This is a picture of the inside of the Lower Cup Lake culvert. The replacement value of this culvert, you may recall, is about $2.5 million. An investment of about $950,000 will substantially extend the life of this culvert. And so this picture shows how the footings have actually failed, sheared off. And so the culvert is being bridged from competent footing at the left of the picture to a competent footing at the right of the picture. But clearly this is a structural concern. There's about 8 meters of fill on top of this culvert, and so it's supporting a tremendous amount of weight. And the footings are in a very poor state of repair, and certainly needs immediate investment. And this is another culvert where the bottom is lifted up and is obstructing the inlet to the culvert. These corrugated steel culverts typically corrode, particularly in acidic water. And so there's probably a little bit of acidity in the water in Haliburton County. And you can see how the steel is completely eaten away here on the culvert edges, and it's suspected that the culvert is perforated on the interior of the culvert as well. And so it's an immediate need for replacement. We're suggesting a replacement cost of about over $600,000 to address this culvert. The Drag River Bridge, the deck on it is substantially deteriorated. Chlorides have saturated the deck and it's starting to delaminate. The waterproofing system is broken down. The parapet and railing system on this bridge is substantially deteriorated, again on account of salt penetrating the concrete and attacking the reinforcing steel. This bridge also has issues with alkali aggregate reactivity, and that shows up as this stained cracking on the face of the parapet walls. So we're recommending about a $2 million expenditure to extend the life of this bridge. A $2 million expenditure in 2022 should extend the life of this bridge by another 20 or 30 years. And so that is a good investment of taxpayers' money. We speak to the bridge condition index. This is something that is done by all consultants throughout Ontario. And the bridge condition index of the bridges and culverts in Haliburton County are reasonable. About 2/3 of them have a bridge condition index exceeding 70. 100 is ideal. Anything over 70 is reasonable. But 1/3 of the bridges have a bridge condition index between 60 and 70, and these will require attention over time. So this sums up the financial information for the county. The bridges, there's about $72 million in bridges in terms of replacement value, and about $20 million in culverts for a total of $92 million. The bridges are depreciating at a rate of 0.9% per year. The culverts are depreciating at a rate of about 1.3% a year. In terms of value, bridges are losing their value at about $650,000 a year. Culverts are losing value at about $250,000 a year. In total, the culverts or the structure inventory is depreciating at a rate of about $900,000 a year. Our recommendation for capital investment on a 20-year basis is $1 million a year on bridges and $300,000 a year on culverts for a total of $1.3 million. The immediate capital needs based on an 8-year outlook is $825,000 a year on bridges and $470,000 a year on culverts, or again about $1.3 million a year. So the long-term outlook, the 20-year outlook for bridges and culverts in an ideal world is a capital expenditure of the order of $1.3 million per year for the next 20 years. And that concludes my presentation.
Well, thank you, Harold. This is excellent information for us to receive prior to our budgeting process. Not unexpected, but still pretty eye-opening when you start looking at the amounts. Before we hear any questions, I just wonder if Craig wants to make any comment.
Thank you, Warden. No particular comment. Thank you, Harold. One thing that we wanted from the structure inspections is this idea of depreciation and asset value, and to give us a realistic look into the future. And yes, it has been a bit of an eye-opener. No fault of Harold's. He's just doing his job. He's the bearer of bad news. So yes, this will be a topic as we move into budget.
Do any members of council have questions for Harold or Craig? Councillor Roberts?
Thank you. Just a question on technology or change in construction. So some of these bridges or culverts are, 50 years old or whatever age. Is there any changes to, composition of concrete or how things are built, and to make sure that when we are replacing or doing work that we're looking to the future and being as, creative and as possible?
Would you like me to answer that, Craig?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. Yes, there hasn't been a lot of significant developments. One of the things that I'm a big advocate of is looking at the life cycle cost for replacing structures. And I'm a strong advocate for replacing most culverts with a concrete, particularly a precast concrete culvert. Precast concrete culverts last longer than a corrugated steel culvert. And on a life cycle cost basis, they are typically a better value. But in terms of material technology, smaller pipes, there's a use of, if I can use the term plastic, so plastic pipes are an improvement over steel for smaller diameter pipes. With the large pipes, large culverts that we've looked at, It's not practical, and there's nothing on the market in terms of plastic. Concrete has improved somewhat over time, but from the point of view of material science, there hasn't been any really great changes that people want to jump on and say, yes, we're going to adopt this versus something else.
Any other questions for Harold? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to accept this report? Councillor DeVolen and Councillor Roberts. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the 2020 biennial bridge inspection final report completed by Keystone Bridge Management be received for information by Haliburton County Committee of the Whole.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Harold. Much appreciated.
Thank you all.
Next, we have Greg Oates and Kathleen Frankfurt from Next Factor to give us an update on their work in destination management. Good morning, Greg and Kathleen.
Good morning, council members. Nice to see you all this morning. I'm with MMGY Next Factor. We're a destination consultancy based in Canada and the US. I'm the project lead for this destination management plan. And today I'm joined by Kathleen Frankfurt, who is an executive consultant with our company and who is a past CEO of the Lancaster Tourism Organization in Pennsylvania. So I'm just going to share my screen here and go through the plan for maybe 20-30 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions. Can everyone see the document?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just go through sort of the highlights on each of the different sections. And then if, I don't know what is protocol for you, if you want to jump in and ask any questions during, fine. If not, we can wait to the end. So a destination management plan really incorporates both destination marketing and destination development. And the end goal is to optimize the overall local economy through tourism. So that was the approach that we took starting with this process, which really began now at the beginning of 2019. It's a much longer window than typically we would take to develop a management plan, but with COVID and everything, we obviously had a bit of a pause there. So in the introduction, we talk about community isn't something we have, it's something we do. And the idea for any destination and really any organization in any sector is the idea of customer loyalty, customer lifetime value. And in tourism, we're looking at trying to compel visitors to continue to come back. And because it's much easier to attract existing customers than new ones. And in a tourism sense, and we know this through countless pieces of research and engagements over the last 20 years, but visitors return to a destination not because they want to feel like a tourist, it's because they want to feel like they're part of a community and they identify with that community. And therefore, when we do assessments in different destinations around the world, the level of community engagement and community alignment and community pride and the overall character and DNA and the belief in the value of tourism is just as important as the overall destination infrastructure and the overall visitor experience. So we talked about a little bit here just to provide context around all of that. Now, in the last 10 years, we've probably worked with 250 tourism organizations, primarily in North America. And a lot of them are smaller, regional, outdoors destinations with a very high percentage of their economy made up through tourism. Right now, we're working in places like Lake Placid and Victoria, who rely heavily on tourism to really fund the destination and provide opportunities across all segments. So we wanted to here just to show that in a lot of rural tourism destinations, like, and I shouldn't have brought up Victoria, really more like a Lake Placid, or we've worked with Ottawa Valley right near you, Banff, Whistler, these kinds of destinations. They all tend to have some of the same challenges, which are becoming further exacerbated over time. And I won't go through all 10 here, but just some of the major ones are anytime you have a seasonal visitor economy with a high variance of high and low visitor volumes, those variances tend to grow over time without being addressed. So you have these high impact periods that put a lot of burden on the community and public works and just quality of life. And we heard numerous times during the development of this plan that, you know, we don't need any more visitors in summer. So a big part of this was visitor dispersal, both geographic and seasonal. Also, anytime you have a pristine natural environment, as you get more and more tourism, that puts a heavier burden on the natural assets of the destination, which is scary just in itself, but also when that's a primary attribute for why people come. And then newer factors such as short-term rentals and what that's doing to the full-time housing stock, how that's increasing prices, how that's dispersing locals farther away from attractive areas, oftentimes, which again impacts the character of the destination. And there's 7 other ones here that are exacerbated when you have a wide, sort of a low population density spread over a wide area. And that's definitely the case in Haliburton County. So that just provides context for really what's happening in destinations like yours around the world, but especially in North America. So then we want to provide some additional context on what we mean by destination management. This isn't necessarily new, but it's, especially because of COVID, become a major theme in the last few years. And it's this idea that tourism development is much more than just marketing when you look at all of the things that need to happen. This has always been known, but it's never been structured and put into a model and never really been codified like we're doing now. And addressing really 4 themes: the community wellness and resilience. So looking at the success of small businesses, working with community groups, workforce development, diversity, equity, inclusion, and resident sentiment are in that area. Then sustainable development, which really looks at building clusters and developing the destination, but equally important, providing the data to inform that, the business intelligence, to really create an enabling environment for investment. And in tourism, that's a big challenge. So looking at that, probably the biggest challenge we see and where there's the most room for immediate gains is this lack of alignment between the public and private sectors. And you have often goals and initiatives being put forth by private interests, but when you look at what happens in a city, a town, a county hall, and council, there isn't always necessarily, if not an agreed upon alliance, just an awareness of what everyone's doing. And then we get into the destination marketing and looking at this as really not necessarily shifting, but evolving from destination marketing and destination management means evolving from promoting a community to building stronger communities. And in turn, building stronger communities provides more enriching stories to promote. Now, this hasn't, again, been really structured up until the last couple of years. This is a model that we've designed for Destination Canada, just putting this in a simple graphic for everything I just said. It's now being adopted by Destination Canada, and it's designed to be scalable for destinations of all sizes and organizations of all budgets across the country. So that's some of the foundation for how and why we proceeded like we did and how it's really baked in some very high level research and collaboration with really organizations across Canada. We've probably worked with 25 different destinations and tourism organizations across Canada. So in terms of the actual community engagement and the process, we did a Destination Next survey and assessment, which I'll talk about briefly in a little bit, and presented that at the community town hall. And that really just shows how stakeholders and community leaders view the performance of 20 different variables in the destination related to the visitor economy. Then we started to proceed through all of the different stakeholder engagement, focus groups. We did another community hall. We did 20 plus stakeholder interviews. And for the focus groups and town halls, except for the community leaders focus groups, we also polled and had a web-based software where we prioritized all of the initiatives put forth. Then recently in October, we did the visioning workshop where we presented sort of the framework and the actual initiatives and strategies to the community. Everyone is welcome. We received some great feedback and we made some adjustments in the plan. We delivered that plan a week or so ago, and now the plan is for to get a little bit more feedback. We can make a few more adjustments potentially, but really to get your buy-in and approval of the overall plan. So just quickly on the destination next assessment, this is where we came and polled community leaders and stakeholders, public and private sector people, and asked for everyone to rank these 20 variables. They were broken down by destination strength, 10 variables related to that in terms of infrastructure and assets, and then community alignment and how the community works together and understands what everyone is doing. And just pulled out a couple data points from that. I won't go into this too long because I know some of you have heard this a lot. But on the brand side, clearly the community felt that the brand was doing very well. That red is the baseline for the other 250 plus assessments we've done, that vertical line. And in Haliburton County and Haliburton Highlands, the feedback was that the brand is ranked very highly. It's doing well. It's doing what it's meant to do. We also shared in the visioning workshop that impressions of the My Haliburton Highlands brand up until September 2020 had surpassed all of 2019. Now, there was some interesting feedback, though. We did hear from some people in the community that they felt that people, quote, outside of Haliburton weren't in love with the My Haliburton Highlands brand, and that's some of the community alignment and discord that we talk about. But the brand is for the customer, right? It's so if it's being viewed as doing well and the impressions continue to increase and local stakeholders feel that it's doing well, then we know that we're going in the right direction with the brand. However, in terms of other elements like workforce development, connectivity, mobility, I'm just sharing workforce development here, stakeholders in Haliburton County are much less positive about how workforce development is evolving within hospitality and tourism than considerably less than all of the other destinations that we reviewed. And this is meant to show an aggregate within the destination, compare that across North America, just to sort of provide some context about how you view your destination performing and these different variables compared to others. And it's significantly lower here in the 1 to 2 range. So what that tells us is that looking ahead, and as growth is expected to continue over the years, that when we see workforce development and these numbers, and just having all the conversations that we've had, this needs to be addressed as much as the destination marketing aspect, which is, again, why we moved into a destination management framework for this. So here, I'll talk a little bit about, and this is so important, aligning tourism and community priorities. Some of the feedback we had during the consultations are, why are we talking about diversifying the economy, and why are we focusing on things like food and wellness and arts and culture? People come here for the snow and the outdoors and the lakes and the cabins. And while all that's true, and we had this conversation in Banff just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about this, and a board member said, you know, people aren't coming into Banff for the community, they're coming for the mountains. It's like, yes, of course, what we're talking about is not meant to supplant, to replace anything that is clearly the big drivers for the destination. The goal is to extend length of stay, diversify when people come to stay, get people maybe to spend one more night, get people potentially to spend more money and get out of their cabins and you know, visit other parts of the community. That's on the demand side. On the supply side, it's also meant to provide more restaurants with more money during more times of the year. And to back that up, we looked at community improvement plans and economic development priorities for the different municipality in the region. One, for instance, the Minden Village Community Improvement Plan, one of the 4 goals there was to increase visitation in the downtown core and also attract more locals. So clearly this is a priority for the region. We want to align with that. When people say, well, how come you're trying to, quote, be all things to all people? It's not that. We're just trying to align with the priorities set forth in the community. And Tourism 101 development is all about diversifying and expanding all of the attributes in the destination and creating a more layered story for more people to plug in more different ways. So I want to get to the actual goals and strategies here as quickly as possible. Some of the polling we did, we asked people to discuss what they would like to see accomplished in the destination over the next 5 years. Those were broken down into tourism development and community and economic development, again, focusing on attempting to align those two. We also always produce a destination vision for any management plan or strategic plan for the organization for that. For these purposes, because the goal is really to bring the community together around a shared vision for the future. This is just a very top level start to that, but as we were going through the process, 3 really signature themes emerged. One, that Haliburton Highlands is an authentic Canadian lifestyle experience, really focusing on blending nature and creative self-expression, and that the destination is about more than the snowmobile tours and the cabin experience and the skiing, that there's really a creative force there, and you have a large design school, and there was a lot of appreciation for us recognizing that and promoting that. And then the third one, that just is a great place to live and work. So the destination we came up with really tried to encapsulate that. It was reviewed positively. The destination vision being where residents and visitors celebrate the essence of Canada's outdoor and creative spirit. So really trying to connect residents and visitors. We understand there's always a lot of pushback from some residents. Anytime you have a really robust visitor economy, we're trying to align that, and then also bringing the outdoor and the creative elements together in one sentence. We went through all these takeaways. I'm sure that anyone who's reviewed the document has gone through these. Just won't go through all these right now, but the idea that there is widespread consideration that having a more year-round economy and having more opportunities for more people in that visitor economy is important for the long-term growth and viability of the destination. There were a few other themes. Ensuring youth want to continue to live and work in the destination, workforce development, and diversifying all of the opportunities are all included in here. So just now to get into the strategic priorities, originally we had 4. The 4th one spoke about optimizing a year-round economy. During the visioning workshop, we got the sense, and we had direct feedback, that there wasn't enough focus on marketing. So we looked at that and we said, well, the optimizing the year-round economy is kind of the overall purpose of the entire document. So we baked some of the strategies that were in that into some of these other ones, just to not have so many areas of focus. And considering the size of the tourism department and its budget, this is actually a smarter way to go with just the 3 strategic priorities. So looking at each of them, well, before we go into those, there's a specific order here, and not leading with the brand and marketing, with the idea very much that, okay, what are you actually marketing and promoting, and how can you support community building and creative placemaking in the community before you start promoting and marketing anything. And in order to do that, the community has to come together and align around some certain basic goals, really to drive overall destination performance. So starting with community collaboration, then getting into diversifying destination development, and that's where we talk about expanding sort of travel niche experiences and opening up to different target audiences and target markets, looking at that. And then we get into the destination brand and how marketing efforts can support and align with those first 2. In terms of community collaboration, we put forth these 4 tactics and initiatives. Probably the biggest shift across North America in destinations of every single size in the last year has been resident surveys. Because of so much confusion, so many challenges, it's critical for public and private sector to understand where residents' heads are at. A lot of that in this last 6 to 8 months is just to understand how people felt about welcoming visitors from different areas to the community. But that's clearly one of the biggest growth developments for destinations everywhere. The second one is some kind of community awareness platform. This could start with just simply expanding newsletter, expanding events potentially. But it was very clear, and again, this comes down to the sort of the widespread overall structure of the region with so much area to cover and people operate in so many different places and not being aware of what other people are doing. And that became clear in a few of the sessions and interviews. So in some way of connecting the dots, it's like it's like creating a necklace. You have all these beads and beautiful pieces on the table, but how do you connect them and really make a necklace and leverage what you already have to drive new business development? Number 3, develop an integrated economic, social, culture, environmental sustainability plan. As the destination grows and evolves, it always comes to this at some point where there's a sustainability plan put forth. We didn't move in this direction too much at the beginning, but clearly as we spoke to everyone and how it polled, there's definite interest in at some point developing a sustainability plan. This is a 5-year plan, so some of these things aren't going to happen right away, but that is something that the community asked for. And then how to work with regional and provincial organizations to create a workforce development initiative. So you have Tourism HR Canada, you have the RTO in Ontario, you have the Ontario government and their tourism leaders. You have some very sophisticated people in your province who together can develop a long-term workforce development initiative for tourism. In terms of destination development, we have 5 initiatives. Clearly, number 1 was straightforward: to develop more niche tourism product and experiences to supplement the primary outdoor tourism drivers and increase off-season business. Evening activities, and while not wanting to stereotype, this was very much directed at youth and providing more people with more things to do and make the destination more attractive to live in for younger people. Some of the pushback says, well, we don't want everyone to be drunk and selling alcohol, and that we feel is an extreme. We're talking about just things to do at night where people can gather in a healthy, productive manner. Number 3, develop stakeholder groups to create collaborative partnerships. So we know there already are some stakeholder groups. They have operated, and from what we understand, in fits and starts. There's been talk about new stakeholder groups, but just to codify and structure something to, again, connect local businesses to support each other and cross-promote each other and develop new business partnerships. 4, diversify and expand trail and park networks. This is low-hanging fruit. You have Algonquin Park, which is important in terms of brand equity. Yes, you have many other parks that are valuable. We understand that, but how can you build an entire ecosystem and optimize that and differentiate it for different types of experiences and build content around that and really build on what you already have again. So we're trying to find initiatives that don't always have a high capital outlay that you can do to really engage customers in a more in-depth manner and comprehensive manner. Number 5, now this is always, mobility is an issue everywhere, whether we're working in Miami or London or Haliburton or Banff. It's the purpose of this destination management plan isn't to come in and provide a lot of extra insight here because you already have plans underway. It's obviously a conversation, but at the same time, it has to be included in here. Our goal is to really drive home the idea that mobility equals opportunity. The easier it is to get around, the easier it is to spend money. If a major thrust for the destination is to get people out of their cabins to go spend money in the community, the easier it is to do that, the more likely they will be. So really to drive home the business outcomes around multi-mobility, not to mention the fact that it's easier for kids to get to school or a hospital or the grocery store or parents, what have you, but really focusing on the business outcomes through the visitor economy when mobility is enhanced, to what degree it can be. And then lastly, regarding the destination brand, number one, promote a much more diversified visitor experience and help visitors navigate the entire county more holistically. When you go look at the website now, there's actually 2 sections on fishing, ice fishing and I guess regular fishing. You know, obviously those outdoor experiences are primary. We're not trying to in any way encroach or supplant any of that. The whole idea is to build on it, supplement it. It's accretive, and with the end goal of optimizing the visitor economy and driving more spend during more times of the year in the community. Number 2 is a big one. There's that content isn't easy to produce, definitely not to produce well. And, you know, how can the tourism department's capacity to develop content like that be expanded? Also, and we're going to talk about implementation, it's critical for there to be a quote unquote Friends of the Planned Advisory Council created by the tourism department to really lead initiatives. And these are champions in the destination who believe in a certain aspect of the community and want to support growth and be part of all of the initiatives put forth in this destination management plan. Number 3, just really lean into the idea of Haliburton Highlands being the essence of Canada's outdoor and creative spirit. And definitely following COVID, we're working with Tourism Manitoba, we're working with again, a few smaller regions, Banff and Ottawa Valley. And because of COVID, there's a definite growing demand for getting out of the big cities and really connecting with who you are and where you are and the people who are in that destination. So leaning into that. Develop marketing initiative to target high value visitors. This is not just to increase spend. When we talk about high value visitors, we're not just talking about higher spending visitors, although that, of course that's part of it, but it's also people who really embrace the character of the destination, want to contribute to the destination and align with the values and character in the destination. And also we talk about high value visitors as someone who might want to relocate or invest in the destination. So to develop specific marketing initiatives to do that, and we have many, many examples to support Amanda as she moves forward. And then lastly, expand marketing efforts in Ontario. You have a massive source market right in your back door. We heard sometimes that the Haliburton Highlands isn't necessarily always immediately recognized, which makes sense in a city of that size. You had some very strong competitors also in the regions. So to really, again, focus on that and tapping into all of that, you know, all of that visitor spend that's only a few hours away. So those are the 3 overarching strategic priorities and tactics. Typically, we wouldn't include those tactics, but working with Amanda and hearing from the community and understanding the context of everything in the area, you know, we heard that this can't just sit on the shelf. How do we do this? How do we implement this? Based on the size of the tourism department, we want to bring as much context as we can. So we included those initiatives, or those tactics rather, which typically we wouldn't. And Amanda and our company also want to set up regularly scheduled check-in periods over the next year, every couple months. We do formal arrangements like that with other destinations and actual implementation structure. This will be more just checking in, talking, providing any assistance we can for the next year. In terms of implementation, what we're really talking about here is just expanding on how there's a need for that Friends of the Plan, that sort of an advisory council or whatever we want to call that, of people in the community that can help drive it forward. There's also specific strategies in terms of now developing a matrix of the 3 strategies, tactics, initiatives, leads, timelines, and we'll be working with Amanda to put that forward to really create a roadmap for how Amanda and her team want to move forward. So that's pretty much it in terms of the plan. Kathleen, who is also on the call, wrote this piece to end it. Kathleen, do you want to just touch on this for a couple minutes and then we'll move to questions?
Sure. Thank you, Greg. And just really quickly, from my perspective as both a consultant and a former CEO of two different destination organizations, this plan is based on two critical things. So it's based on science and data, and it's based on stakeholder input. So when you look at the data that we have used to put this together, this organization utilizes the most extensive resources available. The future study, they conducted an additional study when COVID hit, 350 case studies. So this is based on a lot of experiences all over the world with different destination organizations to see their successes and to see their failures and to learn from them. And also the stakeholder input obviously is key, reaching out to the community, to your business leaders, government leaders, your residents. And we provided many opportunities for that. Town hall session, we conducted extensive one-on-one interviews. There were also focus groups where people were invited to attend and collaborate. So this is a very collaborative, very research-based plan. And from my perspective as a former CEO, in order to be successful moving forward, and especially right now with this world that we live in, you need to have a solid plan and you need to be very focused. So I would just say, this is based on data and science. It's based on stakeholder input. You're always going to have people in the community who don't agree with everything that the organization is doing, but those most successful destinations have been those that have been focused and that have remained on course. So I would just say to the community and say to all of you, it's a very solid plan, a lot of great feedback from the community. And, just again, those destinations that have remained successful, especially right now, are focused and they're moving forward and, not letting people detract from that. So again, just a really solid plan in place. We really enjoyed working with the organization. And now at this point, really wanted to see if there were any questions from any of you.
Well, I'd like to thank you both. There's been a lot of work done, and this is a comprehensive document for us to go forward with. Let's see what we have for questions. Any questions from council? Councillor Moffat?
I don't have a question just so much as just some comments that I have to say I'm not alone in saying I'm happy to see this. I think there's some small pieces in here that we've been trying to leverage over the past 20 years, but there's, lots of challenges that have come with that. But it's really wonderful to see them captured, connected in one place, focused and with a document that can be the foundation for moving forward. There's some shifts here in philosophy that will have to be considered in terms of the integration, collaboration, human and financial resources. But the piece that resonates the most with me, and it's been mentioned a number of times in the presentation, is the community alignment piece. And this is a tremendous body of work that's come from the public, and its success or its failure is only going to rely on the community's ability and willingness to actually work together. There has been historically over a long time a disappointing amount of infighting and criticism. And what's that old saying, blowing out someone else's candle doesn't make yours shine any brighter. So I just look forward to seeing this move forward. There's some, I think, budgetary implications, and it's all good news. I'm great. I'm happy to see it, and I look forward to the community getting on board, those who are going to, and moving this forward. And I'm really appreciative of all the work that's gone into it.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor DeVolen and then Councillor Kennedy.
Similarly, very happy to see the end product here and where this potentially is going to take us. Kathleen, I guess I would say you're in the latter part of your last page there, the 80-20 rule, I think is I'm very happy to see this in here. Certainly with any broad plan across a community, to get 100% buy-in is not achievable. And I would say some of the good initiatives that in years past have had some failures is there's maybe been an attempt sometimes to get everybody on board, and that this just gives us a guiding principle from wherever we take this where we sit today in the county, that there will be people that it isn't going to be supported by, and to just acknowledge that. And the larger part of it is that if 80% of those folks, both the public and those that are stakeholders and in the industry buy in, that's sufficient, and we move on, and not to beat ourselves up and get derailed, sometimes focusing on the 10 or 20% that may not share the particular vision. So I thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy.
I guess you'll hear from another 20% now. I think this plan is been come forward at a very unique time. I think that what you've given us is your thoughts on looking to the vision of 5 years from now. We're already there. COVID has, instead of back to the future, we've moved to the future. We're now seeing lineups at our grocery stores in November to get in. We're now seeing lineups at our gas stations running out of gas, increased demands for services. I think that this is an opportunity for us to take a look at this, but we also have to hit the pause button. And I think we have to ask, how many is too many? Our lakes are overcrowded. There's people there to the max every week now. Higher demands on waste management, all our infrastructure. I think that while we have this plan, it also highlights the problems that we currently have and will have in the future. And we need to look at our infrastructure, the services that the county and lower tiers are currently delivering and how they can do better. And the other part of it is workforce. We have had a huge number of people decide to move here. At the lower tier, I've just been involved in 2 sets of hirings, sitting in on interviews. And the people have moved here. They're looking for work. There isn't work that's year-round, sustainable, good-paying jobs. And so we need to. This is a part of the piece of the pie, but it's part of the pie. But it's only one piece of it. And I think that as we just saw in our service delivery review, the work of an economic development officer, this will dovetail in nicely. But I think we have to ask some fundamental questions: is how many is too many? And we destroy the Halliburton experience by over exploiting ourselves. Thank you.
That's an excellent point, Councillor Kennedy, and I agree that it certainly brings to the forefront the need for an economic development officer, and finding the right balance to make this work. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you. And if I may, just to add and rebut what Pat has said, is I have been involved in the county's tourism for 20 years and have seen it grow and change tremendously. So Pat, you're not wrong. One of the things I think we need to do, and I think probably Greg and Kathleen can maybe speak to it better, is we do have to think about those things. And that's why sometimes it's about value added, about doing, not necessarily doing more, but doing better and different. We have a lot of gaps in Halliburton County, and we complain openly. No one will tackle it, but we complain openly about customer service. So, I mean, that alone could take us miles into the future if somebody would actually tackle it. And I think we don't have to take this plan and pave the road with it. We need to take this plan and integrate it into what we're already doing, into the service delivery review, into our capacity challenges, into our infrastructure challenges, all of those things. And ultimately, I think it will end up being a crafting of finding our own way within the plan based on what the community wants to do. We also have to be careful because, the idea of the steering committee or the friends of the plan is great, but we also have to remember that there are pieces of the plan that live in different places. They either live, in different departments of the county, or they might live at the lower tier or somewhere else. Legislation gets in the way sometimes. So for example, you couldn't have a friend of the plan who say, right, well, the plan says we need transportation. Let's get that bus system back on track. That is a conversation for county council to have that is related and connected, but it's not primary. So this is a huge undertaking to examine the pieces and see how it all fits together and what we can reasonably and viably achieve versus what we can't at the moment. So sorry if I stepped on anybody's toes there, but that's my my take on it.
Any other comments or questions? Any other comments from either Greg or Kathleen?
No, I think that should do it. I'd just really like to mention how impressed and how much of a pleasure it was working with Amanda at the Department of Tourism. There's a lot of passion and intelligence, and I really look forward to working with her during the next year.
Well, thanks again for your work. And if I could have a mover and a seconder to receive the plan. Councillor Moffat, Councillor Shell.
Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the 5-year destination management plan, and that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that the plan be adopted.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay,
you.
we have one more delegation from Hope Lee about Gull River Development Affordable Housing Project. Good morning, Hope.
Can you hear me okay and see the presentation?
Yes.
Good. So Warden, members of council, both Kawartha Lakes Haliburton Housing Corporation and Mr. Switzer, thank you for your time this morning. I'm pleased to outline the Kawartha Lakes Haliburton Housing's newest development plan, which is in Minden. This is a particularly exciting project for both Kawartha Lakes Housing and Mr. Switzer, as it will become the first public-private partnership that the Housing Corporation has worked on. Both of us actually hope that this project becomes a model for others. The presentation is to provide you with some knowledge of the project and then hopefully support for the project both in principle and financially. So the formal requests and recommendations will come through your council through various means, planning reports and the Affordable Housing Target Program over the next several months. In 2019, Kawartha Lakes Haliburton Housing Corporation and Mr. Switzer entered into a letter of understanding, which outlined the roles that each of us would play around the property, which is currently owned by Mr. Switzer. So the proposal that we're working on includes 30 new rental housing units on a vacant parcel of land. The land's on the west side of Highway 35. At the intersection of Highway 21. So while the property is in Minden's urban settlement area and is fully serviced, both the Housing Corporation and Mr. Switzer realize that in order to develop these residential units, an official plan amendment and rezoning are necessary. And we actually have applications underway for those processes. So the development will include 15 duplex buildings, creating 30 two-bedroom townhouses. Each of those townhouses will be accessible and are approximately 800 square feet. The townhouses will provide 30 units towards the affordable housing targets. Right now, the split that we're looking at are 10 would be at 80% of that affordable rent. And 20 at 100% of the affordable rent. So if we looked at this year's affordable rents, a unit that was at 80% would rent for approximately $980, and a unit at 100% approximately $1,200. That's inclusive of heat, hydro, water. We would also be looking for some rent supplements to make 10 of those units even more affordable, so more based on a rent geared to income model. The all-in capital cost currently is at an estimate of $7 million. So while this project will receive financial support from both the Housing Corporation and Mr. Switzer, it's important to highlight the significant contribution of Mr. Switzer towards this project. Without his support, including that land, this project would not be possible or considered. He's a longtime seasonal resident of the county, Mr. Switzer's owned the parcel of land for many years. So this project is not only his dream for this parcel of land, but his way to give back to this community. Mr. Switzer will be involved in the development of the project. However, once developed, the project will transfer to the Housing Corporation. So the Housing Corporation will own and operate the development, and we're actually working on transfer of the property, which will hopefully happen before the end of this year. So since this development will include a significant affordable housing component, we will be applying for a number of municipal incentives. I'll highlight those on a future slide. As you realize as well, we've developed that affordable housing target program. So Kawartha Lakes Halliburton Housing did do a pre-submission under that program. So I'm actually presenting this project today in advance of that formalized affordable housing target report because we have an opportunity to apply for some funding. It's called the Rapid Housing Initiative. So this funding is part of the National Housing Strategy, and it can actually go as far as covering 100% of the capital cost. One of the specific criteria is that the units are created quickly, and one of the specific approaches are that it's a modular development. So this project really falls nicely into qualifying for that funding as it's well into development phases, and it is a panelized system that will be used. So the funding process and the criteria are quite aggressive. Submissions are required by the end of this month. CMHC, who is running the program for the federal government, will make approvals based on those submissions by the end of January of next year. And then any successful developments through that funding have to be completed by March 31st of 2022. So if we're successful in actually obtaining this funding, we wouldn't require any debt on the property. The funding would help us get to a zero debt limit, and we would be able to offer all 30 of the units at a rent geared to income level without any rent supplement. So another important factor of this funding is to show commitments locally for the project. So having your support today would really be appreciated and help us to move closer to achieving that funding. So the next few slides just provide a bit of a visual of the proposed development. So on this slide, you see the development actually plotted on a map. So this project will nestle nicely into the area. It has the Gull River as a boundary. The area provides a number of amenities, including Rotary Park and the grocery store. And topographical and geotechnical studies have been completed to confirm the suitability of where the units are going to be placed. This slide shows the site plan. So entrance to the site will come from Highway 35 directly. A few of the units will sit higher while the balance will be in the lower portion of the property. Each unit will have parking directly in front of their unit. And one request that we've made to Minden Hills is for the donation of that road allowance that you see the one unit is encroaching on there, and Minden Hills is supporting that road allowance would be provided as a land donation. So this slide and the next slide are project renderings. So there is every intention to construct these units with both energy conservation and sustainability at the forefront. The design is a panelized system and it's using a passive house approach. So passive house allows the units to actually reach what's called net zero. So that's a rendering of what the units will look like once they're completed. So there are a number of highlights for this project. One of the most important is how it will assist both Minden Hills and the county to meet affordable housing targets, those targets that were recently adopted by County Council, and a specific portion of the targets were actually identified to be created through KLH new development. So this project will assist in starting to meet some of those 10-year targets. So while Mr. Switzer has years of development and property management experience in the GTA, this project will be owned and operated by the Housing Corporation, who has experience and success in developing, owning, and operating affordable rental housing in the area. The Housing Corporation, as you know, is the largest housing provider in the area, providing just over 750 units across the city and county. It also has some of the greatest experience in serving some of the most vulnerable individuals in our community, including those that have been homeless for a significant period of time. So this will be our newest development in Minden. As you probably know, we have 21 units that will be ready for occupancy early next year. In addition, this private-public partnership and this development overall can become a model project in Minden and the area. Both of us, the Housing Corporation and Mr. Switzer, are documenting as we go along, and we'll be willing to share with others details of the partnership and the development itself. So we have been working on this project for about a year now. So we've worked on creating the partnership, designing the development, and completing some of the necessary reports and studies. So we have all the documents completed now, and the official plan and rezoning process is underway. And if all goes according to schedule, as seen on this slide, tenants could be moving in as soon as the spring of 2022. So this schedule also will help us meet the criteria of that rapid housing initiative funding, should we be successful for that. This project will rely on your support and approvals as well. This will include planning approvals like the official plan. While we realize this property wasn't necessarily considered in the past for residential, we hope that you will agree with us that it's possible and it will meet a significant need. It will also include recommendations, as I mentioned previously, through that Affordable Housing Target Program. And then, of course, there's contributions by Minden Hills, as well as both Mr. Switzer and the Housing Corporation. So I'm just going to walk through some of the detail of more the local requests that are being made. So certainly we need those planning approvals, including the official plan amendment and zoning to permit the 30 units on the site. Then some of the other incentives, so more particularly for Minden Hills, is the donation of that road allowance, some of the application fees and charges around the zoning application, the site plan process. We've made a request that the security required in site plan is waived and building permit fees. So I will note that Minden Hills is very supportive of this program and has approved that these different incentives could be provided to the project. More significantly here today, a request to the county for $360,000 as a capital contribution from the county. So this is very similar to other Kawartha Lakes Halliburton developments that we've done. So this is the equivalent of $12,000 per unit that we've asked for in the past with both projects in the village of Halliburton and the ones that we have worked already on in Minden. Some other pieces to it. So if the rapid housing funding isn't successful, we would be asking the county to fund 10 rent supplement units so that the 30 units can be for the lowest income group, and actually a rent calculated at 30% of their income. And we would also be asking for support from the city of Kawartha Lakes itself, which we have done in the past with all of our previous developments where they assist with cash flow. And then once the project is completed, they actually secure the debenture on behalf of the Housing Corporation, and then the revenues from the actual rental units cover those debt payments. So just in closing, again, I want to thank you for your time, as does Mr. Switzer. We hope that you're as excited as us, and we're very proud to be working on yet another partnership program with the county. And I can answer any questions if there are any.
Thanks, Hope. This is definitely an exciting project that will move the target a little bit for affordable housing, and we look forward to it. And I'm sure we've got some questions. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you. I would agree. I think this is really exciting, and so congratulations to everybody involved. Hope, can you, on slide 11, you just went over if the rapid housing funding isn't successful, and it speaks of funding for a rent supplement within 10 units from the County of Halliburton. Can you explain the dollars about that and go over again how that works for me, please?
Sure. So what happens is from operating funding, the county provides a supplement between the market rent for the unit and what the tenant is able to pay based on that 30% calculation. So for a 2-bedroom unit, for example, at that average market rent, the estimated subsidy would be about $600 per unit per month.
And that's for how long? Like, because what it sound, and you know, me in housing, but is the County of Halliburton becoming the banker for these rents? Forgive me, but I'm not following how long that lasts. Is it an offset with time, or is the county using tax dollars to pay for people's rent?
Yes. So wearing my other hat on the service manager side, we're always looking for different funding opportunities. So certainly, if there was a way to take advantage of some provincial or federal funding to assist with that, we would do that. Otherwise, you're correct that it would become tax supported. There's various terms that you can look at. We like to have a relatively significant term. So I would say no less than 5, 20 years being kind of the best model, because the other thing is we don't want to put people into positions where they're receiving that financial assistance for a period of time and then the program ends and that assistance is gone. There are rent supplement agreements already that the county is part of as well.
Does that answer your question?
And I'm going to sound like the big meanie. I think it's terrific for the county to provide capital investment to move these projects forward. And again, forgive me again, I'm have a gap on the county already being involved in rent supplements. I struggle with the county paying rent for people. Like I know I sound like the Grinch here, but it's no different than to me, unless I'm wrong. You know, the Dorset Health Hub, Algonquin Highlands has always said it makes an annual financial capital contribution, but it will not get involved in paying for any kind of operation or management. And so, unless I'm grossly misunderstanding, am I the only person on the screen that struggles with that part?
So maybe I can just clarify that you're not paying the rent on behalf of the tenant. You're actually assisting the housing corporation to receive the full rental income for the unit so that the overall financial model is viable while allowing the lowest income resident to be able to occupy that unit.
Okay, I see hands from Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Rael.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with that, Councillor Moffat, but I am excited about this project. This is absolutely fantastic, and I have a couple of questions, so I'll try to do quickly. Highway 35, clearly you've been at this for quite some time, so you have MTO approvals, and I'll just ask my questions all at once. So Highway 35, visitor parking, is there sufficient visitor parking? Because there's what you don't want to make sure that, you know, and including winter and snow storage and snow removal, et cetera, that there is sufficient visitor parking within the property. And that area is prone to flooding. And I just wonder, I know obviously it has to meet water setbacks, but is there consideration taken in, like that any of that area could possibly be affected by flood?
Okay. So MTO is involved in some of the review around the official plan and rezoning processes. So that review is currently underway. So we hope that they'll be supportive, but it's too early to say that. It is under review, like I mentioned. There is visitor parking built into the community that's based on other historical parking requirements for the housing corporation. So what we would typically see needed there. And yes, we've certainly considered that it's along the Gull River there, and we're meeting the setback. So the county has a setback requirement that's a fairly significant setback. And that's being met as well.
Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Sure, just to follow up on the MTO comment. So what I suppose what my little gut's saying is, what if they say a traffic light is needed or something like that at that intersection, as opposed to right now it's a very busy intersection with 2 lanes coming southbound and where 21 meets, and it already has a high traffic volume. So I just wonder how far along you were with MTO, and hopefully they, you know, that would be a very expensive undertaking.
Correct. So we're not formally in that process yet of the OPA and rezoning. So although they're reviewing the documents, when the planning reports actually come forward, that's when there would be the understanding of if they're requiring a traffic light. And then we'd have to look at those recommendations and how that fits into the project overall.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Roberts, for asking the question about flooding, because my concern was the setback from the river and how that would all fit into the development. Councillor Rael and then Councillor DeVolen.
Yeah, I think this is an awesome project, and I respect that there's going to be challenges with regards to things like traffic lights and areas with regards to if and when there is a floodplain. But I think those are all items that can be dealt with and certainly should be pursued for this thing to come off. But having said that, I also totally and absolutely agree with Councillor Moffat in that I respect and totally understand the way you worded the subsidy for the extended period of time. But whether we give the money to the corporation itself or we pay it on behalf of the resident, we are subsidizing that rent one way or the other. And if we do that, then we're committing ourselves to monies that could be used for developing other projects that would enable us to expand our ability to have more housing. So although I totally and absolutely think we should be pursuing this to the most that we can and dealing with any and all objects that would stop it from happening, I am absolutely not in favor of supporting the actual subsidy of rents. So I just want to put that out there.
If I'm not mistaken, I think we are already subsidizing some rents. That's been in place for quite some time. It's not a new it's not a new proposal. Councillor DeVolen.
A couple of things. I'll just speak to some technicalities here and then my general comments. If you look at slide 5 with the site elevations for the lots that are closest to the river, you get some idea of how the grade quickly goes up from there. It's substantially, even the lowest of it is much higher than any part of Rotary Park. So the reality is, I would say if these units are in the water, my house would be underwater where I live in the other part of the town. So that obviously this has been in the work for years. Pretty familiar with the property. That is not a concern. With respect to MTO approval, it's almost a decade now since that section of Highway 35 passed 1 million vehicles a year. We've had a fatality there in the last couple of years. And apart from this, like 30 units in the sea of over 1 million vehicles a year, in and of itself isn't a tremendous load. Obviously, we, especially after the fatality, we tried to impress upon the MTO for some changes along the Highway 35 corridor. I think this will just be another one that we need to have them make the changes to the infrastructure, whether it's another light end or sidewalks and some of those other things that from a safety point of view that are absolutely required, certainly will be part of this dialogue. So apart from those technicalities, this is exciting on a whole bunch of levels. The public-private partnership is an unbelievably new chapter in where we may go in the city and the county with this. And I would say if it goes successfully, we have citizens in the county that have properties that I suspect that this might be the first, but it won't be the last to follow this mold in any of the 4 jurisdictions that we have. The other thing is the panelizing plant. In full disclosure, I operated one of the first panelizing plants in Ontario. That approach to building isn't new, but it is cost effective, certainly in a passive house context and near net zero. These are huge in terms of cost for the housing corporations, i.e. you and I sitting as here as politicians with taxpayers' money. This has long-term positive implications for reducing those operating costs in anything that we build going forward. And like I say, I'm really excited on a whole bunch of levels and gladly, obviously, through Minden Hill supporting it. And as your board member on the Housing Corporation, I'm hoping we may see many more like this throughout the county and region. And thank you for this. And for those that didn't know that we're somewhat in the supplement business, that it's new news, it's not. That's certainly another dialogue. And if we're unsuccessful in the grant, I suspect that we'll come back to this chamber, and not only with respect to this project and others, that we'll have that conversation.
Other questions? Councillor Moffat, then Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, I still am stuck on the supplement part, and I extend my apologies if for some reason after 10 years on county council I've somehow gapped on this. I really struggle with this, and again, if I was unaware, or maybe it's the way it was presented, or I wasn't paying attention that day, I don't know. But you know, housing is so important. This is an incredibly important project, and it is a game changer, and I love everything about it except that one piece. You know, COVID has wreaked havoc on small businesses, but we're not offering any sort of supplements to anybody else, and so I'm just wondering about you know, equitable application of financial resources across a variety of sectors. So I would ask if our, sorry, Mr. CIO, but I would like to see presentations that we've had in the past where it's been clearly laid out so that I can apologize again for having missed it. This really is new information for me, and I'm really struggling with it. And I just need a little bit more. And to Councillor DeVolen's comment, if the rapid housing funding is not successful, yes, it would come back to this chamber to discuss, but we've already committed to it. So then it becomes a bit of a moot point, does it not? So I personally need a little more clarification on this, because I fear I have let my side down by not knowing that this exists, and I just need to know more.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Just changing topic, I just want to agree with Councillor DeVolen on this private-public partnerships, and I think they're the future of the way things are going to progress, not just with housing. Dysert's in the process still of the gift of land. I believe Highlands East had a gift of land to create a park. So there are opportunities for people to get involved and help make their communities better places. So congratulations to Mr. Switzer for being so forward thinking. And I love this design of the net zero house. I think that is, again, also just a really innovative way to build, and will reduce the costs of heat and hydro and all of that. And my very last thing is just a comment to have a pedestrian path, if possible, through the, are you smiling, Councillor DeVolen, so that people can access Rotary Park, because while I didn't see a lot of green space, although there's trees all around them, the 15 units don't have a park, except they've got a park right beside them. So if they could, maybe there already is a pedestrian path, so they don't have to go out to Highway 35 down. That's it.
Okay, other questions or comments? So I believe we have a resolution to support this this project. Could I have a mover and a seconder, or do we want to wait for more information? Mr. Rutter.
If I could, I think one of the things that KLHHC requires from the county in order to make the application is a commitment on the $360,000 financial contribution. So I think maybe we could separate the two questions, and the rent, the RGI information could come at a later date. But I think in terms of the $360,000 financial contribution, Council has for a number of years set money aside for projects like this. Last year, you increased that amount to $201,000. 126,000 of that was for our final contribution to Pine Grove Place Phase 2. That leaves a balance of $75,000. If the amount stays the same in our budget of $201,000, we would be able to fund that $360,000 with about $115,000 left to support other projects. And again, that's without an increase. I think it is something County Council has talked about a lot during budget deliberations, that there may be further financial requirements needed to develop the number of affordable units in the county that are required over the next decade or so. So I have included that with I'll read the resolution that I've drafted. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the Highway 35 Minden Gull River Development Affordable Housing Proposal, and that the request from Kawartha Lakes Haliburton Housing Corporation for a financial contribution of $360,000 be approved pending budget approval. And I think that meets Hope's requirements for the grant application.
Could I have a mover and a seconder for that resolution? Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Schell. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Hope.
Thanks very much.
I'm sure we'll be talking more about this particular development.
Thanks.
If council, I think this might be a good point for us to take a short break between our delegations and the rest of the business for today. So if we could adjourn for 15 minutes, would that be acceptable to everyone? Everybody grab a cup of coffee and We'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, we're back live.
We'll call the meeting back to order. Next order of business is the adoption of the minutes from our previous committee of the whole meeting. So if I could have a mover and a seconder to adopt those minutes, Councillor DeVolen and Councillor Moffat. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Be it resolved that the minutes from the October 14th, 2020 meeting of Haliburton County Council Committee of the Whole be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? Carried. We have no correspondence, so we will move on to roads. And we have 2 or 3 items under roads. I guess we'll look for Mr. Douglas to join us. Hello again, Mr. Douglas.
Good morning, Council. Okay, first report status. Just want to talk briefly about the winter. Just as a reminder, the county has 2 shifts, one starting at 4 a.m. and one starting at 12:30 p.m. And we have 6 plow routes. I will go on record to say that this winter has been, or this year, this has been better for us in terms of the winter budget and the bleeding. There's only 3 weeks left, so I don't think it's a big risk. And I checked the 1-week forecast, so I think we're okay. There was the bleeding of the winter reserve has come to an end, so that's a little bit of good news. In the midst of a pandemic, we've done some contingency planning with regard to staffing. We do have 1 floater full-time position that can fill, jump in any plow at any yard. We've also hired 2 temporary seasonal operators. They're actually currently in the plows right now because we have a couple people off. And of course, to be able to use vacation is a bonus, so they're not using it in the summer. We also have 1 call-in casual, an ex-employee that's retired and can come back and jump in the plow. So furthermore, we can also, if all else fails, reduce our 6 routes to 5 longer routes. And furthermore, getting a bit more extreme, level of service drops a little bit, but we can also drop down to 1 shift, similar to the local municipalities. So we've got a number of levels of contingency built in. Just an update on our green fleet policy, specifically the anti-idling policy. We are training staff now so that come January, we can be fully in effect. That's basically it for winter status. Any questions?
Any questions from council? Could I have a mover and a seconder to the status report? Councillor Roberts, Councillor Burton.
Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Burton. Be it resolved that the December 2020 status reports on road maintenance be received for information by Haliburton County Committee of the Whole.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next item is the purchase of a hybrid SUV.
Great, thank you. So back in October, council approved that staff seek pricing for a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid SUV. That's in line with the Green Fleet policy in that vehicle purchases are being right-sized for their use, and the vehicles are energy efficient. Staff made sure to reach out to all the dealerships to make sure that we didn't miss any hybrid or plug-in hybrid options. Sadly, though, only Peterborough Mitsubishi submitted a bid. Some of the others that were polled said vehicles were not available, or vehicles couldn't be priced, or they don't like to respond to competitive bidding. We know that other municipalities and the province have purchased this particular vehicle, and there's no known major issues. As it turns out, the price of the SUV with the, or sort of after rebates, similar to the pickup truck, which was the default vehicle had we not moved towards the SUV. So the purchase prices are the same. Now, if we take into account life cycle of the vehicle, it includes pricing of the fuel and maintenance and whatnot, the SUV is lower cost. Have to mention too, greenhouse gas savings because of the hybrid vehicle amount to 7 or 8 tons of carbon dioxide savings per year. Although the SUV is slightly over budget, it is more than offset with the purchases previously this year for the 1-ton trucks and 2 1-ton trucks and the loader. We had a savings of 60 to 70,000 on those vehicles. So that's it. Any questions?
I just wonder if you foresee any maintenance issues with the vehicle.
None out of the ordinary. We're cognizant of the hour drive to Peterborough every so often for regular maintenance. I think that's a small price to pay for all the other savings.
Okay, thank you, Councillor DeVolen, then Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, having been in the industry at this time in COVID and a bunch of new model rollouts, there's not a lot available in this sector yet, but I can tell you in the next 12 to 24 months, the next time you go out for one of these, there'll be a lot of products, a lot more products available than they are today. Just a question with respect to the plug-in portion. Do we need to do something additionally in terms of the hydro service where we plug it in at its home base? And if it's working out of the administrative base, then please have a conversation, if you haven't already, with Minden Hills municipal staff, obviously with green initiatives and plug-in, both for the public and for municipally owned vehicles. We're going to need to do something in the future and in the proximity of our buildings, if and when that's required. We would certainly want to partner with the county.
Great, duly noted. I know the electric charging stations are a big project in the future. And yeah, I do agree with your first comment. It'd be nice for all of the dealerships to get on board with these vehicles. It's a chicken and the egg thing. So I'm proud that the county is marching forward with the hybrid. Maybe that'll change things up here.
And it's always nice to see partnership opportunities too. Councillor Roberts, you had a question, a comment?
Yes, it was more or less too about the hydro aspect of it, and that so this will only be plugged in at the office. Is that and it doesn't require any specific upgrade?
It would also be plugged in at the resident, charge overnight. It doesn't need anything super sophisticated.
Okay.
Of course, it charges quite slow, but if you've got the advantage of charging it overnight,
excellent.
That'll work.
Any other questions on this acquisition? Could I have a mover and a seconder for the resolution? Councillor DeVolen, Councillor Moffat.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole recommends to Haliburton County Council that the award to purchase one hybrid or plug-in hybrid SUV contract 2020-1-F be to Peterborough Mitsubishi for the amount of $38,948.44 after rebates totaling $8,843.56 plus applicable taxes.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next up, card lock system purchase alternatives.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is not the first time staff have brought the card lock option to council, but we're back. In general terms, the system would eliminate trips to the gas station, and staff would use a key card to unlock the pumps to receive either gas or diesel. Having gas and diesel at the yards with the generator power also protects us during the power outages. Very important reminder here too, I put a chart in the report, is that as far as the county is concerned, 80% of greenhouse gas is produced by our fleet. The remaining 20% is buildings. So keeping that in mind. The card lock system ensures every liter is accounted for. We need good, reliable data to make informed incremental changes to reduce our fuel use. Now, incremental changes on 80% of our emissions is significant. At the October 2019 council meeting, modernization funding was being discussed, and the purchase of a card lock system was approved as part of this funding. So staff looked at three alternatives. As the bare minimum, the tanks only alternative has the benefit of cost savings because we can buy the gasoline in bulk, similar to what we do currently with diesel. And of course, the availability of gasoline during power outages is another advantage. What the tanks only alternative does not have is the hardware, software, and security of the card lock system. So some of the advantages of the card lock system I outlined in the report, but initially trucks have direct access to fuel at a convenient location, i.e. the yard. Now, if other municipalities were to purchase a card lock system, in theory, the county truck is in Dorset, could purchase gas or diesel from Algonquin Highlands Yard in Dorset, or Highlands East truck could purchase something in Highland Grove, or fire truck could purchase fuel at the closest yard. So that could all be put into the same system and billed accordingly. Another big advantage, particularly for staff, is the elimination of Visa cards in all the vehicles which are used to purchase the gas. Okay, so the difference between alternatives 2 and 3 is whether or not the card lock is purchased outright or financed through the purchase of gas. Staff are recommending to purchase outright to take advantage of the modernization funding and also to be consistent with Council's October 2019 recommendations. Now for pricing, I broke it down in the report into the components so that other municipalities could sort of look at their situation and estimate accordingly. So with our tank needs, our 3 yards, and the data collection, we're estimating the purchase to be around $100,000. And again, recommending that it be funded through the modernization funding program. Any questions?
Questions, thoughts, comments? Councillor Kennedy, then Councillor Moffat.
More of a comment than anything, Craig, is I'm wondering, we have a climate change consideration section on all of these. I'd like to see a collaboration section where when we consider major purchases like this, that you've reached out to the lower tiers to see if there's any opportunity to partner. I spoke with our public works director this morning, and there was an initial discussion, but there's been no follow-up as far as doing a group purchase on a multiples of these or any follow-up. I just think it's a great move to move forward with this. It makes sense, but I'm just wondering if that's maybe a standard line item now when we look at procurement, that we look at collaboration as part of the recommendations from the service delivery review. Thanks.
That the addition of the collaboration into the that is sort of a high level consideration. I think that all reports, not just public works, I think is what you're considering. Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. This is, we've been out to, this is the second time we've been through the card lock system, and we did reach out to the other local municipalities. And I guess before we were to be too aggressive with that, we were looking for a recommendation from council to actually proceed with anything before.
Okay.
Councillor Moffat, and hang on just 2 seconds. So Mr. Rutter, did you have a comment?
I was just going to add, Warden, that I think in the initial, when we went out for quotes, the initial, initially, Highlands East actually did partner with us. So that request did go to the local municipalities, and we did have uptake from one.
Councillor Moffat.
Thank you. I agree with using the modernization money, and that's what it's for. My question, though, around that is, what I can't remember. We had a report a while ago. Where does the modernization fund stand? And obviously, staff have discussed this, and the treasurer's been part of this discussion. Is this project pushing out anything else, or has this been determined to be a priority with the modernization money? How much is left?
Maybe we could bring the treasurer back. I did ask her for a report on that, but I can't remember the number.
Certainly not in my head.
If in the interim, we could take a question from Councillor Rael.
Yeah, I think this is I think everybody's saying the same thing. I just have one question specifically. You were saying that when you're buying in bulk, there's a differential in the price between what you're paying per liter and what you would pay in a pump. And I know pumps change from wherever it is you get your gas. And the second question is, do you know what the total volume is of what we currently buy, either in liters or dollars? So we can get a rough idea of what the annual saving would be in just gas alone. Yeah,
we worked out. Of course, it's dependent on pricing, but $20,000 to $25,000 a year on the gas side of it, because we already do diesel.
You had a follow-up question?
Yeah. So what we're basically saying then is you've got somewhere between a 4 and a 5 year payback if the price of gas doesn't change.
Exactly. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Councillor, Mr. Rutter and Elaine Taylor for a response to the question.
I'll take a first run, and Elaine can correct me if I'm wrong. How's that? So based on we have a little over $200,000 left after the $100,000 has been committed to this project. So a little over 200,000 left. We had also in previous reports noted some training for Lean Six Sigma and some additional security at public works yards. So that's another $85,000 that has been committed. Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus is going to be requesting another $10,000 this year to do further studies. They have depleted their reserves with the paramedics study and some long-term care studies that have been ongoing. And so again, we're after this is done, we would have over $200,000 left. If we proceed with the Lean Six Sigma training and the security, it would be closer to 130,000.
I agree with Mr. Rutter. He's reading off of the reconciliation from November 30th of the modernization funding, so his numbers are correct.
Thank you very much, Madam Treasurer. Any other questions on this? I'm hearing that. Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Yeah, this, we didn't fully say no before, we just had more questions. So now they've been well answered. And I just wonder, is there an opportunity for our own EMS to have such a thing? I suppose all their vehicles are diesel, but it's clear diesel. No, they're gas operated.
They are gas, yeah.
Okay, didn't know that, sorry. Is there an opportunity, not right now in this necessarily, but just to, within the county to also be providing something for EMS so that they aren't also going to gas stations all the time? Just a thought.
And a good one.
That is our lot. We've had lots of conversations about that. That's certainly our goal. Some of it is location, but I know that in the past, we've had a lot of issues when we have power outages. There's only one of our gas stations that have battery backup or generator backup. I'd like to note that that's in Wilberforce. We have had some challenges with that in the past, and this would help address those. But it is our goal to include EMS.
Councillor DeVolen, and was there a follow-up from Councillor Roberts?
Only to say to Councillor Kennedy, I sent our Director of Public Works an email yesterday actually saying, check the county agenda today. We need to be talking about this. So before any tenders go out, if you can just hold off till Dysart has an opportunity to talk with staff and the rest of our council. Thanks.
Councillor DeVolen.
Yeah, just obviously conversations when any of the 5 levels of government are going out to stuff. And if it's not already included, and I won't presume that it's not, that any piggyback clause or language that's in there that, at the time that you asked, Craig, prospectively, Minden Hills may not be needing something, but our circumstances that could change, some months down the line, then we would, if that language across all of the jurisdictions was included, so that if any of us wanted to pick up on something that we have quotations on, that opportunity exists.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if there are no further questions, I'm hearing support for an outright purchase of a card lock system. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that resolution? Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Roberts.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole recommend to Haliburton County Council to purchase outright a card lock system for the 3 patrol yards, and that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole recommend to Haliburton County Council that the purchase be funded from the Ontario Service Modernization Funding for Small and Rural Communities, and that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole recommend to Haliburton County Council that staff be directed to inquire whether local area municipalities will partner in a joint procurement.
You've heard the resolution. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Okay, up next is a proposal by our chief of EMS about increased staffing. So if we look to bring in Chief Waite, good morning.
Good morning, Warden and members of council. Yes, my report this morning is with regards to Ontario Health East has approached several of all the Eastern paramedic services that there is some funding available right now is on a one-time basis till March 31st for community paramedic projects. In some cases for the area to create a community paramedic program because they don't have one. But for us, it's to enhance our community paramedic program to assist what is called the high intensity support in the community, which is those individuals who are requiring nursing home or long-term care facilities at this time. And the idea is that those beds aren't available, and it will keep these individuals hopefully out of the hospital. Especially during these times when we're prepping that we could have a surge of COVID patients occupying hospital beds. So that's where this funding is originating. I'm presently trying to communicate right now with home and community support just to see what the need is in our community. I'm just waiting for them to get back to me. This is all very new, but I wanted to approach all the councillors at Committee of the Whole just to get your guidance and support that if we can sufficiently staff this, that we do increase our community paramedic community presence in the community. How that will look, I'm not sure whether it be 7 days a week, whether we just have longer days. That's where the home community support will assist me in what the needs are in the community. Right now, our challenge is staffing for it. We are now upstaffing Torrey Hill right through until Thanksgiving, which occupies actually four additional positions. We have a couple of individuals off on short-term disability, and we've had a recent retirement. So we are in the process of hiring. We hope to have several new paramedics on board by the end of January. And this being the case, I just hope to be able to take advantage of this opportunity that is coming our way. And just so council knows that the community paramedic program seems to be an evolving process with the province of Ontario. So there may be more initiatives in the future, but at this time, I'll certainly keep the council apprised of that as they come forward. But that's where we stand right now. It's just over $88,000 that they're proposing that we have in addition to what we presently have funded for our community paramedic program. And again, it is one-time funding. It needs to be utilized by the end of March.
Questions or comments for Tim? Councillor Moffat, then Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you. I think this is a great idea, and I think we should absolutely take advantage of it. My question is, what happens on March 31st? So if it's one-time funding with an end date, those who have been around will understand it's the platinum dashboard. If it doesn't continue with the extended service, will it look like, or will it be a reduction of service to the community, and what's the impact on that?
I don't think, I mean, certainly there's a hope that the funding continues, but there's also the chance that the funding discontinues. I'm sort of viewing it that take advantage of it as it exists now. If it ends on March 31st, the idea of it now is maybe a short-term relief to assist with the high intensity support, which hopefully is a temporary thing, that eventually the beds become available and we decrease the numbers of residents in the community that require this high intensity support, and they do get beds, and now they don't need the care at home.
Follow-up question, Councillor Moffat?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess it's, as I often say, as long as we acknowledge that if we find that this service is needed in our community, and it probably is, in my experience, it is, that we as decision makers be prepared to consider funding it continuing to fund it going forward if there's no further funding for it, if it in turn turns out to be something that's really needed for longer than just this sort of crisis situation.
Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, as with anything when the province gives you money, I'm always after them for a little more. Is there any provision, do you know, Tim, at this time for additional administrative support dollars and for additional infrastructure costs, such as the vehicle maintenance, supplies, that kind of thing? Is there any, or is this all staff wages?
No, they have indicated that there's opportunity for some administrative support if required. The capital purchases, such as a new vehicle, no, but some smaller items, possibly. I'm looking into some software for, certainly different than an ambulance call report, but something specific for community paramedicine. So these things they've said, we're not saying no to, but we need to just run it by them before we make those purchases. And I've also looked at, if we don't have the vehicle, if we have to have an additional vehicle, is there the potential to rent something on a temporary basis, which I understand other communities are. So again, these are things that if we go forward, we just have to ensure we get the approval from the LHIN and Ontario Health.
So would that be funding over and above the 88,000 or within the 88,000?
That would be within the 88,000.
Okay. Councillor Rael?
Yeah, it's unfortunate times that we find ourselves in, but one of the questions too that I was going to ask, and because we're going to need to address this one way or the other, but the other thing I'm asking is, are we starting to take on challenges that may require additional training on behalf of your staff? because I think we need to make sure at the end of the day that they are as best equipped as they can for some of the challenges they can get into.
Certainly their scope could change in the future. We have looked at, there's a program out of Saskatchewan that is geared towards community paramedics and their training. Right now, until I get further information from Home and Community Care, I'm not sure what we're looking at as far as what type of support in the home is required, but you're certainly correct that as these things evolve with community paramedics, certainly the skill set may change in that there is additional skills required, and that would require additional training in the future, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to agree to move forward with this initiative? Councillor DeVolen, Councillor Moffat, thank you.
By Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Moffat, be it resolved that the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives the December 9th, 2020 Haliburton County Paramedic Service update on community paramedicine, and that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that our community paramedic program be upstaffed with an additional community paramedic until March 31st, 2021, utilizing the one-time funding provided by Ontario Health East.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, up next would be our treasurer with our financial reports.
Good morning,
Welcome back.
and councillors. You want me just to start in with the check register report?
Yes, please.
Hey, check register for November 20th, EFTs, PAPs, and checks were totaled $1,441,277.28.
Any questions on the check register? Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor DeVolen, Councillor Roberts, thank you.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Roberts, be it resolved that the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the staff report on the check register for November 2020, and further that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that the check register for November 2020 with checks, EFTs, and PAPs totaling $1,441,277.28 be hereby approved.
All in favor? Carried. Payroll register.
The payroll register for November 2020 totaled $424,055.82.
Any questions? Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Shell, Councillor Burton.
Moved by Councillor Shell, seconded by Councillor Burton, be it resolved that the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the staff report on the payroll register for November 2020, and further that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that the payroll register for November 2020 with net direct deposits totaling $424,055.82 be hereby approved.
All in favor? Carried. And finally, the year-to-date actuals.
So the year-to-date for November 30th, 2020, we are sitting at 89.9% spent in operating expenses, 61.2% in capital purchase expenses. So to date, we have spent 91.67% of our annual budgeted levy, which is exactly 11/12 of the levy. Included in all of those amounts are $380,000 of COVID expenses, which are completely covered by funding.
Thank you. Any questions? Could I have a mover and a seconder? Mover and a seconder, Councillor Kennedy and Moffat. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Moffat, be it resolved that the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the staff report on the year-to-date actuals as at November 30th, 2020, and further that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that the year-to-date actuals as at November 30th, 2020 be hereby approved.
All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Thanks, Elaine. Next up is our Director of IT to give us his status report. Good morning.
Morning, Warden Danielson, members of council. This is just my standard status report that I present to the committee of the whole each month. The only thing I would, I guess, bring to your attention is on the page 3 of the appendices, or the appendix, and just wanted to bring to your attention the phishing security tests. I usually include the results of the last 6 months worth of tests, and you'll notice a big spike there. We did a test back at the end of October, and we had a fair high number of failures. Subsequent tests have been better. Just to let council know, after getting that high spike and that large amount of failures on that one test, we followed up with all the staff members who did fail the test. We've also followed up with I followed up with the 5 CAOs and have them follow up with staff, any staff who have not yet completed the most recent security awareness training. And we've also implemented a warning flag on emails, so that if anything comes in that would be generated by an internal system and it comes from the outside, there's a yellow message across it, which I'm sure you've all seen on your emails. Other than that, there's nothing else that I would bring to your attention, and happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Mr. March? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to accept his report? Councillor Roberts, Councillor Moffat. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Be it resolved that the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the December 9th, 2020 IT Department Status Report.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, nothing under planning and environment, personnel, or tourism. Under items of business, we have a report on updates to the procedural bylaw and a little bit of discussion on how we might want to proceed going forward. Over to you, Mr. Rutter.
Thank you, Warden. The major changes that have that are included in the draft attached have actually been discussed with council already. And we've incorporated those directions into the draft as we understood them. So I guess we are looking for confirmation that we actually did. One area that we stumbled upon when we were preparing the report was that we hadn't had any conversations with council about were the appointment of committees. In the past, the incoming warden would recommend membership on standing committees, external boards and committees to council. And then at the first meeting of those committees, the standing committees in particular, each of them would select a chair and a vice chair. We've now gone to committee of the whole structure, but we have maintained a role, a formal role for the chair and or the vice chair as an alternate in chairing the committee meetings or that portion of the committee meetings and acting as a liaison for staff. So I guess in order to start a conversation, and it was just that, we have incorporated a recommendation that the incoming warden would recommend those roles for the chair and vice chair to county council, and those recommendations would be considered by council at the December council meeting. So similar to in the past where they would appoint or recommend appointments, now they would be recommending the chair and vice chair role. And then I guess in terms of next steps, our procedural bylaw actually requires that we provide notice on the agenda prior to the meeting that this would be presented, so or considered by council. So we would be bringing a revised draft back to the December council meeting based on your feedback today. We will note on the December council agenda that it will be considered by county council in the January council meeting, and we would bring back a final draft at that point for your consideration.
So it would sound to me like we might have up to 3 choices. One is to continue as we have been with a chair and a vice chair of each department basically as contacts and to lead that portion of the meeting. Or we could have the warden who's in place chair the entire meeting, or we could actually, I think in some other jurisdictions, there's an opportunity to just sort of go around with each member of council taking turns chairing the committee of the whole meeting. So I would look to all of you for thoughts about the choices and how you'd like to proceed. Councillor Moffat.
To me, to appoint a chair and vice chair for essentially a committee that doesn't exist seems a bit unneeded, unnecessary. I think Minden Hills rotates the chair of the committee of the whole, do they not? And you know, if that works, that's fine. I would be happy either way. Either way.
Councillor DeVolen, then Councillor Roberts.
So,
and then Councillor Burton.
So in Minden Hills, the mayor sets the what we call them committee liaisons, and that of which there's some of them that there's two from council and some there's one, but for argument's sake, well, let's say the chair and the vice chair. And the reality is, in committee of whole, the chair, or in the absence of the chair, the vice chair chairs that portion. So in committee of the whole, as mayor, I chair the general, but when it gets to each particular section, the chair is handed over to the appropriate member of council that they chair that portion. So that's just what we do. Obviously, it would be two the same for me. So on a selfish level, that works for us there, and it might work here. But having said, you've given a couple other scenarios. I'm not going to die on this hill. I could live with any of them.
Well, and basically what you're saying is that you're doing what we have been doing here for the last year primarily. Councillor Roberts.
So it's interesting today being committee of the whole day, and essentially you as warden have chaired it. You know, we're probably going to be doing Zoom meetings for a long time. And I know, Mike, how you love to change the procedural bylaw at least once a year. I would suggest that we have the warden chair committee of the whole. We have a deputy warden will be appointed. So therefore they're the vice chair. This is working. We all have ample opportunity to, we all have ample opportunity to speak, even the chair as warden. So I think this is flowing very nicely and easily, and especially while we're not physically in the same room, this makes sense to me to just have the warden be the chair of the committee of the whole and the deputy warden be the vice chair.
It does flow better. I do like the idea, though, of having somebody who is who's appointed to kind of each area of responsibility. I mean, it is good to have someone. I mean, I guess it can be the warden. But you know, that's just something else to consider, that you've got people that are actively involved in different aspects of our operations. We'll go to Councillor Ryall, then Burton, then Moffat.
Yeah, I think the way we're running it right now, as Councillor Roberts is saying, is very good. I think keeping the warden as the chair of the overall meeting is probably more. It keeps it flowing in a better way. Now, that's not to say that if we have a specific project or a specific issue that needs to be dealt with by someone on council who is championing that particular issue, that the handoff couldn't be made. So, but as far as the actual chair of the meeting is concerned, I kind of think the warden and the deputy warden would probably be the two right people.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Warden. I totally agree with Andrea and with Cease on the warden taking care of the entire meeting. You know, you've done an exceptional good job today, and I think it's flowed very well.
I've got to apologize that this was not an intended sample of what we could do. I just dove into the meeting and shared it. And my apologies to all those who are responsible for different departments.
We'll get over
it. Councillor Moffat.
Excuse me, thank you. I like the idea of there being some sort of liaison person to reflect different areas of existing knowledge, expertise, and interest. but I can't quite figure out, other than being a liaison to department heads for different things, what that person's role would be. Because as I said previously, I think having a chair of different areas is unnecessary, but I quite like the idea of the liaison. Now, whether you rotate the chair, I don't think that's necessary, but I think it's important that there be active involvement by members of council within the departments where they have something to offer based on their own expertise. So maybe consider that.
Councillor Shell.
Thank you. Yes, so for 14 years, I've been doing it the way Councillor DeBolen has described. However, in the world of Zoom, I actually think that having the warden chair the full meeting probably is simpler. When we're in a room and, it gives a little bit more, it gives the department head one person on council to, if they have questions or something they want to bring through council that they can go to rather than everybody coming to say just the mayor. But like I said, in the world of Zoom, I think perhaps the suggestion of the warden chairing the full meeting is probably a good idea, but I kind of like the idea of a liaison to each department so that they have a member of council that they can go to bounce stuff off, to bring through to council, which we would have an opportunity to speak even if the warden was chairing the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy.
I really like the idea of you, the warden chairing and the vice chair is, the vice warden is the vice chair. The liaison is definitely required. I know that, and we've moved to committee of the whole in Dysart and basically disbanded most of our committees, but staff, department heads still seek out whoever used to be the chairs of some of these committees just to bounce the ideas off and to have a chat with and discuss, to be able to move initiatives forward or just to review. So I like the idea of a liaison, that perhaps when you turn it over to tourism, it's not that Carol is the chair, but she's the liaison person and maybe speaks to in support of or along with Amanda, just for example. I'm not just sure what the process might be, but I think it helps staff with continuity and who to turn to, not necessarily the mayor or the warden for everything that comes up.
Mm-hmm. So I'm hearing a sort of general consensus that the warden or deputy warden, whoever is sitting in that chair, would chair the meetings, and that warden would also appoint liaison individuals. So if there was a specific topic or issue that had come up, that person would be able to bring a report to council or give information to council. Are we in agreement with that? Okay, sounds good. You have your direction there. Councillor Moffat.
I would like to throw a wrench into the works, if I may. We have bandied about in casual conversation a discussion and potential removal of the weighted vote. So just while the procedural bylaw is open for discussion, is that something that is of interest?
That's an interesting point. I know that it's not been a major issue. It's been rarely used, but with so much coming forward ahead of us, some pretty major decisions that, it may be something that we want to think about, consider the pros and cons of not having a weighted vote. I can see that there might be two members of council who might disagree. But I think maybe it might be helpful to get a report or maybe have an opportunity to discuss this, what the implications of it are and how it might be used when we're looking at the procedural bylaw. Now, we might have to bring the procedural bylaw back again to deal with that, because I think we need to resolve who's going to chair the meetings and how the meetings will work before the new year. Councillor Royale.
I'm not sure if this would be an appropriate question, but for those of us who are rookies or just totally ignorant in the first place, how does the weighted vote work, or should that be taken up at a different meeting?
I think maybe that we might look to a report rather than putting somebody on the hot seat, that being our CAO at this particular moment, what's the general feeling of council? Is this something that you want to bring back for discussion and consideration? It does not mean that we would do away with it, but to look at the implications and make sure that all members of council fully understand what the implications are. Thoughts? Did I see your hand up, Councillor Kennedy? And
yeah, I'm a rookie here, so I went along with C. So I'd like to know what the implications are, and I want to do some more research before I comment on either way on that. Thank you.
Councillor Schell?
That was going to be my comment as well, being a rookie. I mean, I do know what the weighted vote is, but I'd like to know all of the implications before I was to vote upon that.
Can we ask that you bring something forward to us at our at an upcoming council meeting, Mr. Rutter?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I may have some additional questions about what you're actually what information you're seeking, but I can get that offline.
Okay. Councillor Burton and then Councillor Roberts.
Being around for 14 years, I've seen the weighted vote used once.
Yeah, for a rather unusual circumstance at that,
But it's interesting when it is laid out that it's mainly financial or financial reasons, but everything we do or touch is financial.
That's correct.
I'm really looking forward to looking into it or at it.
Just for those who aren't aware, the weighted vote was used once in that period of time, and it was with respect to the rail trail. And whether it would be for all users or non-motorized vehicles. Councillor Roberts, then Councillor Moffat.
And thank you, Warden. And just to clarify, the weighted vote means the head of council of the municipality with the largest assessment, which is Dysart, has 2 votes. So 2, 3, right, 3. Well, I get 2 and Pat gets 1.
Let's wait for the report from our to make sure we have the right numbers.
Yeah. So my question actually is not about the weighted vote. Sounds like we're going to wait. But my question is regarding something to do with our service delivery review and the procedural bylaw, and how in our meetings that we have an opportunity to share things that are happening within our municipality that might affect others so I Mike, if you can help me out here, because I'm just thinking as I'm on the fly and I don't have the service delivery review fresh in my memory, but it was that we could discuss things, for instance, like, how you do a round table, or on the library board, which we just had yesterday, it says members update. So each library board member will go around and say something that's happening within their municipality. So was there something like that on the service delivery review where there was an opportunity or a suggestion to change our procedural bylaw for communication?
I'm glad that you brought that up, because it was something that I was going to ask that we add to the standard items on our agenda, that we're going to have discussions on a regular basis, and I think they need to have a formal mechanism included within our procedural bylaw to do that.
Yeah, I apologize if it isn't in there. We intended for it to be in there, because the service delivery review did recommend that there be a standing item on all of our agendas. They recommended committee of the whole. Quite frankly, I think it's more appropriate at council, but they recommended that be a standing item on each agenda, and that that would give me the I'm not sure what term to use, maybe moral authority, to contact the CAOs and let them know that conversation had taken place and that there may be some action required on their part. I think that one of the areas that I expressed, and maybe I was the reason that happened, one of the concerns I expressed to the consultant was I would often hear conversations happening at the county council table where there seemed to be an agreement on how to move forward, but I didn't really feel it was my place to contact the CAOs and say, oh, by the way, I heard a conversation today, and Angie Bird, you're supposed to do this, this, and this. I just didn't feel it was my place. And it wouldn't be that conversation even with if it was on our agenda now, but it would certainly give me the ability to contact them and say, this conversation took place and it's something that we'll have to get further direction on and from the group. So
I'm just wondering about your comment, Mike, that it should be at council as opposed to committee of the whole. It's just been my experience that there's more discussion, more sort of rolling up of sleeves at committee of the whole than there is at county council. And it's the same body of people. So I was wondering what your rationale for it being at county council was.
More in terms of and it is totally procedural and maybe ridiculous. But it would be, if there was a conversation, in theory, the recommendations to county council adopted 2 weeks later. So if there was a conversation about something to pursue something, in theory, I might have to wait 2 weeks in order for county council to approve that recommendation, that it be considered. But again, it may be a ridiculous thought, but from my mind, I just went to procedurally, it may delay things.
Thoughts on that, Councillor Roberts?
With the idea from the service delivery review, and what I was bringing forward, thought it was about, was that also as you know, we as county councillors can bring forward things that are happening within our municipality that may have opportunity for partnerships or sharing. It gives us a formal agenda item where we're allowed to speak about it in public because it's been on an agenda, or maybe we request if there's even supporting material that can be placed on the agenda. You know, if Dysart wants to share a housing project or another large community project that might be happening, or Dysart's doing something with their landfills and we want to share that. So it's a lower tier responsibility. So I also was thinking that it's an opportunity for us to be, as county councillors, to be sharing and partnering and communicating.
Yeah, if I might, it is in the draft on page 3. In the order of business for county council, we've included intermunicipal collaboration. But again, there's no magic really to the committee of the whole or council. It's just, but our intention is to put a standing item on the agenda or recommend that.
Well, and we've also had discussions about, or the service delivery review did make recommendations about a number of working groups that would have to be set up with membership from each municipality. So somehow we'll have to integrate that system or process into our own procedural bylaw. Councillor Moffat.
I just want to circle back with Councillor Roberts, as I'm having trouble following the thread here. Andrea, are you suggesting that during the meeting that members of council, not unlike the Chamber of Commerce does, do like an elevator where you pop up and say we're doing something exciting in each of our townships? Is that what you're suggesting?
Only if it could possibly affect a partnership with other townships. So for instance, like I'll use landfill and waste management. It's all local tier, lower tier responsibilities, but we were wanting to bring that forward to the county table to see if we could collaborate on something. So it's not just, hey, guess what we're doing in our township? Not a bragging thing. It's more of that there's an opportunity for collaboration, short-term rentals, etc., that kind of thing. How do we move forward on those?
Right. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and there's definitely some areas when you say short-term rentals, that raises a flag for me that it would really be nice for us all to be doing the same thing throughout the county so that there's no confusion at all, especially when you see, you know, some of the geographical challenges that we've got. Any other comments or questions specific to the suggestions for the procedural bylaw? So could we have a resolution recommending approval of these suggestions? Councillor DeVolen. Seconder, Councillor Kennedy. Thank you.
Before I read the resolution, I was also going to suggest that we take out the time for the inaugural meeting because Councillor Roberts asked for it to be changed every year anyway. So I thought that.
You'll have to wear that one.
Sorry. Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Be it resolved that the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the December 9th, 2020 staff report outlining proposed changes to the county's procedural bylaw, and that staff present a draft bylaw for council's consideration at the December 16th, 2020 council meeting, incorporating any changes as directed.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Of course, all items are subject to discussion and possible alteration at any given time. So that concludes the open portion of our meeting. If I could have a mover and a seconder to go into closed, and we'll have a brief, unless anyone needs more time, maybe 5 minutes between sessions. That sound okay? Mover and a seconder. Councillor Schell, Councillor Burton, thank you.
Moved by Councillor Schell, seconded by Councillor Burton. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council enter into closed session as per section 239(2)(k) of the Municipal Act as amended for the following reason. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
All in favor? Carried. See you in 5.
We're live.
Okay, that concludes our closed session portion of the meeting. And as there is no further business to discuss, could I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn the today's meeting? Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Schell, thank you. Love to be able to count on Councillor Kennedy.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Schell. Be it resolved that the December 9th, 2020 meeting of the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole now adjourned.
All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next week.